it's not too hard to find their contact information, or even walk across the street and pay them a little visit and drop them some of your materials and let them know that you're interested in coming back here. It's not a very long drive, and be worthwhile. Also, get to know some bands from Boise. There are plenty playing. This is an excellent opportunity to make some friends and set up some exchanges, some shows that are mutually beneficial.
Yeah, and just going back to the networking point, just at Treefort right now, there are lots of Boise's music industry hanging out and at panels like this. And so I think just trying to make it a point to connect with some of those people while you're in town and build a relationship, and see if there's an opportunity for it to go from there while you're here, I think is a great starting point.
Or try to throw something in Missoula. You said Missoula, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, try to throw something in Missoula. I think you guys had like that music conference a couple years ago. I don't think that happens anymore, but that was probably a cool thing where people got together and kind of celebrate, from these different kind of pockets that aren't all together all the time. So, start your own thing there, and it might be small at first, but keep it going, and it'll build into something like Treefort after 7 years.
Ian, we met earlier this week. It was kind of cool because you asked me a similar question when we hung yesterday, and we made a good connection. I feel like we totally. I think I remember you. You know what I mean? I remember you coming and telling me your story. I've seen a lot of markets grow, and I've seen a lot of markets, they breathe. They have these, we all kind of have, they inhale and then they exhale, I'm from Detroit area. I've seen a market grow in ways and still find its art. Missoula is one of those markets that has just recently gotten to a point of pushing tickets past a $20 marker, to be frank, and having the appropriate venues, to be frank, to have touring national. Those promoters I work with in Missoula have relationships with promoters in Boise, in Colorado, and Wyoming, and Sean Lynch, and you know what I mean? All these guys that are doing these national tours, they're all working together and they're saying, hey, I just got a call. Shanti Darling's looking to tour. And they're working together to block book, essentially. I will get several offers from a promoter for one region because you're in a remote region. I'm from Michigan. Nobody came through Michigan. You didn't go through Michigan to go get anywhere else, you know what I mean? It wasn't one of those markets. So those Michigan promoters worked really hard to network with Toronto and Chicago and Cleveland. And you build a network of a relationship, and we were talking about that. That's kind of, I would suggest pushing that forward and making relationships with those main promoters that are doing shows on a regular basis,
And you had a second part to your question.
Yeah, so I guess the second part is kind of softly related, but yesterday, the talk after the one you gave yesterday was about the future of advertising and how it was really important for artists to get synced and get their songs licensed and placed in commercials and all that stuff. I was wondering what other outlets works to make an artist jump from selling out your hometown, doing well in small markets that are kind of distance away to be only to and also being a hardworking touring artist to be being represented. What can artists do to make that jump from being the sleeping on floors to making a little bit of money to eat?
I mean, every artist I work with and every person I've talked to, it's not easy being an artist. It is the hardest job in the biz. And I really believe that you all put a lot of your heart on the table and your pound of flesh on the table, and we try to follow suit. But I think looking at events and I can only speak from a booking agent perspective, but a lot of the time I'm looking for exposure or I'm looking for financial support. I need to find those two opportunities are the most important opportunities for my bands. And so I'm working with Haley, Haley Hendricks, who will be playing tonight or this afternoon. And she's on one of the Bob Boylan's Slingshot program, which you're probably familiar with. And even something like that, we're gonna take a chance and we're gonna hit it we're gonna go out on the road. We're gonna see that as a tool and a backing, and we're gonna try to solidify some markets, you know what I mean? And I think all of us are kind of trying to see does this tiny desk mean we can go nationally? Does this does that mean we're gonna sell out New York and Boston and Philly and be a band from Boise? I think we're all sort of still learning what is important to become national, and what does that really mean? Because I think we're all looking for sustainability and growth and like just the steps that it takes to grow something, you know.
I think planting a lot of seeds is important too. You know, that getting on Bob Boylan's Slingshot is one seed that could grow into something great, but you have to spread a lot of them, you know, and be persistent and don't be discouraged when people say no.
Yeah, there's a point that was made on yesterday's panel that said that nowadays it's not just a matter of getting like a big break. You've got to try and get a bunch of different breaks. And so I recommend just exploring and trying different things. Like for Magic Sword, I think the thing that helped that project get out of Boise was just some really cool sync opportunities that helped the band connect with a bigger audience worldwide. And then we use those sync opportunities to try and get press as a result of them. And then we use that press to try and get other opportunities. And so I say just explore lots of things, experiment with lots of different marketing channels. I think there's publicity, I think there's radio promotion. There's so many different ways to try and connect with different communities, and I suggest exploring them, trying them out, seeing what seems to have an impact, and then if something does have an impact, just do more of that thing and keep diversifying.
And I just wanted to end that if you are going to spend your hard-earned money working with someone, working with a radio publicist, a talent agent, or a manager, ask them for examples of their work, for samples of what they send out to people. I mean, it's huge. The difference between one promoter, one publicist, and the next can be gigantic and can make a real difference in the efficacy of your campaigns and what happens with your money. So check it out, ask for samples. I feel like not enough people do.
And I've also found that asking for recommendations from the people who receive pitches from folks like that can be really useful. So if you have a relationship with a music supervisor, ask them if they know of a good licensing rep who might be able to do a good job with your work. Or if you're looking for a publicist and you know some writers or bloggers, asking them which publicists they have a really good relationship with and feel like do a good job. I feel like that can be a good way to identify folks that could work well with your work.
That brings up an interesting point that I don't think we talked about yet. I think the number one way I discover music is from someone like one of these 3 people or 4 people emailing me about it. Sure, I read some blogs, I listen to some demos, I go to some festivals, and that all really helps. But I think the stuff that stands out the most is when someone that I trust their opinion sends a link to me about it, because that shows that whether they're working with them in an official capacity or just kind of sharing it because they think I might be into it, that really shows value and that there's some weight behind it. And I'm much more likely going to open that email if someone I know sends it to me. So if there's a talent buyer in your local community or whatever it is, or a manager or a booking agent that maybe you're not working with, but they know what you're about, have them reach out to some people that might be receptive to your work, because I know that's how I discover a lot of stuff.
I think we might have time for another question or two. Anybody? Sure.
So going back to the radio, you said you could like come in and drop in your music. What's the best format for that? Like thumb drive, CD? What do they prefer?
At this point in time, any format. A personal delivery is great. You can say hello.
Are most stations like that, Theo, or
I'm
can
saying if you go
approach-
across the street to Radio Boise, every station's a little bit different. At mine, we welcome visitors. It's real nice to get face-to-face contact with folks who are making the music and trying to get their music in front of people and also seeing who we are. But for the most part, like a very simple, succinct email that's cordial and has a link to an easy download. It can even just be like Google Drive. It works great, and make sure it's a good mix in a good quality. I prefer WAV files, but high quality MP3.
I think that goes back a little bit to knowing who you're talking to, who you're reaching out to, and asking to listen to your music, and figure out how they want to be contacted. You know, like I personally wouldn't want a band to just show up at my office. You know, bands contact me on Facebook all the time, and I'm like, hey, it's great to hear from you. Please send me an email. You know, so
I think email's good, and I also think maybe also I'm just thinking about the last couple signings I've had, and a lot of them have been because someone else has called. If to put that out there to all the artists, you know, Haley to E-Town. I just picked up this radio broadcast from Boulder called E-Town Radio, and literally even the host didn't call me. I'm getting calls from a publicist, a lawyer, a manager, a promoter, a radio. I mean, literally, you know, with Haley, I got called from OPB just. Because all of us innately in our hearts want to share things we love and believe in. And so it will organically, naturally be spread when people truly love it, you know? So I just was thinking about kind of the last couple relationships I've formed, and most of them have come through other people other than the artists.
Yeah, I can tell a quick story about last year at Treefort, meeting Rob Dindler from Marmoset turned into like this huge relationship of people that I've worked with over the past year. You know, so those personal relationships are really important, and he's pointed me in the direction of several other people, you know, different labels that he has worked with that aren't necessarily in the Marmoset family, but, you know, tangentially, it kind of spirals and grows.
And to go back to the radio question really quick, I had a show on Radio Boise for a while, and sometimes artists would just reach out to me directly, like rather than going through the standard submission process that a lot of other artists go through, and in which to find their music, I'd have to go through this big list and listen to a bunch of stuff. Just when an artist would reach out to me directly and say, like, hey, I've been listening to your show. I think you would like this song that we created. It's kind of like this other thing that you played and seemed to really like. I found that was a much better way to get played on my show in particular. I can't speak for others, but
It's huge, yeah, and maybe kind of a sniping, pinpointing the people that you know are into the kind of music that you are delivering. Just sending the one email to the music director, that's great, but it doesn't hurt to also reach out to individual hosts that you think are going to or might be into what you're doing. Yeah, reach out to those folks, get to know them, listen to a few shows.
Yeah, read the blog before you pitch it.
Right.
That's. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I was like, they're usually submission guidelines too somewhere on those websites. Check that out.
Totally. Check the contact us page. Read how they want their submissions. Totally. I think that's about it. Thanks you guys for coming out. Thank y'all for being here.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.